Have you ever stood in the middle of a room you've lived in for decades and felt like every object around you was whispering, "You can't let me go"? It's not just stuff. It's your mother's mixing bowls, your husband's reading glasses, the teddy bear your daughter forgot in 1983. But one day, the walls feel heavier than the memories. And you whisper back, "Maybe it's time." In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 powerful, even a little ruthless tricks that older women like us have used to clear an entire home in just 48 hours. Not just to make space, but to finally breathe. This isn't about minimalism. It's not about being tidy for guests. It's about releasing the weight of what no longer serves you and stepping into the version of yourself you've quietly longed to become. It's not easy, but it's deeply freeing. And every single woman watching this can do it, even if you feel overwhelmed, alone, or too tired to begin. Let me tell you about Vivian. She was 73, newly widowed, with 2 grown children living states away. When the moving truck was booked to come in 48 hours, she looked around her 3-bedroom home, a museum of 40 years, and felt completely stuck. But here's the part that still gives me goosebumps. She did it. Not only did she clear the entire house by herself in 2 days, she said she felt lighter than she had in a decade. She didn't cry when the truck pulled away. She smiled because she finally understood. Letting go of things isn't losing your life. It's making room for it. So if that quiet voice inside you has been wondering, what if I don't need to carry all this anymore? Let's take a closer look right now. 1. The 10-minute window. Sprint, not marathon. When I was younger, I believed that if I was going to clean or organize, it had to be all or nothing. A full Saturday, music on, sleeves rolled up. But now, in this quieter season of life, I've learned something much more powerful. 10 minutes can change everything. You see, as we get older, our energy doesn't run like it used to. Not just our bodies, but our minds, our hearts. Making decisions, especially emotional ones, is tiring. And that's why many of us walk into a cluttered room, look around, and feel paralyzed. It's not laziness, it's fatigue. Vivian, the same woman I told you about, discovered a little trick that saved her from that paralysis. She set a timer. Just 10 minutes. Not for the whole room, just one drawer, one shelf, one single surface. And here's what surprised her, and me too when I tried it. In 10 minutes, your brain doesn't have time to overthink. You trust your gut. You don't argue with yourself about whether to keep a birthday card from 1992. You just know. You toss the expired lotion. You donate the sweater that hasn't seen daylight since 2003. You breathe. Vivian tackled her entire kitchen in these little sprints. One cutlery drawer one morning, a spice rack that afternoon. She said it felt like winning tiny battles, and every drawer she cleared gave her the courage to face the next. And because she stopped before she was exhausted, she actually looked forward to the next session. That's the secret, not burning out, stopping while you still feel strong. I like to say, we don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. So if you're staring at a room that feels impossible, just give it 10 minutes. One tiny corner, no more. And when the timer dings, stop. Make a cup of tea, stretch your legs, and remind yourself you did something today. That matters. Now, once you've gotten a little momentum, the next trick will help you cut through the guilt that keeps us stuck. It's a bit brutal, but surprisingly freeing. Let me show you. 2. The triage method. Be gentle, but be firm. One of the hardest parts about letting go isn't the physical act. It's the silent questions that whisper behind every item. What if I need it? What if someone gave it to me? What if it's too special to toss? I've been there, staring at a drawer full of someday things, feeling overwhelmed, unsure where to begin. That's when I learned something powerful from Vivian's journey, the triage method. Now, I know the word triage sounds cold, something from a hospital, but it's not about being heartless. It's about being clear and kind, because clarity is a kindness too. Vivian looked at every item and asked herself just one thing: can I live without this? If the answer was no, if it was something truly essential or brought deep daily comfort, it stayed. If it was something she hadn't touched in over a year, it went. And here's the brave part: anything in the middle, the maybe pile, the stuff we keep out of fear, she treated it the same as the no pile. That's not easy, I know. We were raised in a generation that saved everything, just in case. But here's the truth: holding on to everything doesn't make us feel secure. It makes us feel stuck. Vivian began in her kitchen. 23 mugs, 3 sets of china, a bread maker used twice in 10 years. She chose 2 favorite mugs, let the rest go. Her cabinets, once overflowing, became places of peace. And as she moved from room to room, she got braver. The more she released, the freer she felt. She said it was like shedding layers of worry she didn't even know she was carrying. So if you're standing in front of a shelf today, unsure where to start, just ask, does this serve my life now? Not who you were 20 years ago, not who others expect you to be, but you today. And as we peel away the clutter one layer at a time, we open space, not just on the shelves, but in our hearts. Now, speaking of emotional weight, let's talk about the fear of letting go. The one that whispers, but what if I need this someday? There's a powerful test for that. Let's walk through it together. 3. The stranger test. From guilt to clarity. There's a certain ache that comes with sorting through old things, not because they're heavy to lift, but because of the memories they carry. A birthday card from a friend long gone. A dress you wore when your children were still small, and so we keep them. Not for their usefulness, but out of guilt. I remember standing in front of my closet once, hand on a jacket I hadn't worn in 15 years. I whispered, but it was expensive, as if that justified it taking space in my life. And then I tried something new, something Vivian taught me. She called it the stranger test. Here's how it works. Imagine a complete stranger walking into your home and sorting through your belongings. They don't know your story. They don't know your memories. They only see the object. Would they understand why you kept it? Or would they think, why on earth is this still here? Vivian used this test on her photo albums. 23 thick books filled with blurry pictures, duplicates, and strangers' faces she no longer remembered. Through the eyes of a stranger, she kept only the photos that sparked joy, told a clear story, or honored a deep memory. From 23 albums down to 3, beautiful, meaningful, hers. She did the same with her book collection. Business manuals from a career long retired. Romance novels she'd never reread. Self-help books that served their time. A stranger wouldn't keep those, and truthfully, neither would the woman she was becoming. Here's what made this so powerful. When you see your things through someone else's eyes, you stop keeping what weighs you down and start honoring what lifts you up. The guilt starts to fade, and in its place, clarity blooms. You begin to realize that letting go isn't betrayal. It's an act of love for your space, your peace, your future. So, if you're standing there torn between keeping and tossing, ask yourself, would a stranger understand? And if the answer is no, maybe, just maybe, it's time to thank it and let it go. Now, that question, but what if I need it someday, is the one that lingers even after we've made up our minds. But there's a gentle way to face that too. Let's talk about it next. 4. The replacement reality check. What's it really costing you? There's a little voice that whispers whenever we hold something up and think about letting it go. But what if I need this someday? It's a voice rooted in fear, of lack, of future hardship, of needing and not having. And for many of us, especially those who lived through leaner times, it feels irresponsible to let go of something still good. But one afternoon, as I sat on my porch with Vivian, she asked me 3 questions that changed everything. She called it the replacement reality check. First, if I needed this exact item tomorrow, could I realistically get another one? Second, what would it cost me to replace it? Third, how many times have I actually used this in the last 5 years? She applied this to a drawer full of old kitchen gadgets, 12 spatulas, 8 can openers, a bread maker used twice in 10 years. Replacing any one of them would cost less than $10 at the thrift store, if she ever truly needed it again. But every day these things cost her mental space, physical clutter, and emotional noise. And then she looked at me, gently smiled, and said something I'll never forget. We think we're saving money by holding on, but often we're spending our peace to save $5. I looked around my own home that night and realized how many things I was holding on to, not because I loved them, not because I used them, but because I feared needing them again. Yarn for knitting I no longer enjoyed. Fabric scraps from unfinished sewing projects. That juicer I swore I'd use during my health kick of 2016. All quietly stealing space and energy. When you sit with those 3 questions, you start to see the true cost of just in case. You begin to understand that space, peace of mind, and simplicity are often worth far more than any item gathering dust. So before you keep something out of fear, try asking yourself, what is this truly costing me? Not in dollars, but in peace. Now, not every object is equal. Some things deserve our full attention, others just don't. In the next part, we'll talk about how to invest your energy wisely without draining yourself in the process. 5. The emotional energy scale. Save your strength. You know that feeling when you open a closet or drawer, take a deep breath, and think, I should go through this. But 5 minutes later, you're emotionally wiped out? That's not just clutter. That's energy drain. Real, invisible, and very powerful. Vivian understood this the hard way. After her husband passed, she tried to declutter one weekend. She started with their shared closet, but an hour later, she was sitting on the floor, surrounded by memories, not clothes. That day, she didn't clear anything, just reopened old grief and closed the door again. It wasn't that she was weak. She was spending the wrong kind of energy on the wrong kind of stuff. That's when she created what she called the emotional energy scale. It's simple, but powerful. On a scale from 1 to 10, ask yourself, how much emotional energy does this item truly deserve? A broken umbrella from the thrift store? That's a 1. Out it goes. Her late husband's watch? That's a 10. Handle it with care. Old receipts, expired warranties? 0. Trash. No ceremony needed. But her mother's handwritten recipes? An 8. Kept, protected, and cherished. What this scale gave her was permission. Permission not to treat every object as sacred. Some things aren't tied to who we are. They're just things. Others, however, hold pieces of our heart, and those deserve our time, thought, and energy. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And once she stopped giving the same energy to meaningless things as she did to meaningful ones, something surprising happened. She had more strength, not just physically, but emotionally. More clarity, more lightness. And yes, more time for what actually matters. Friends, family, herself. So before you pick up another box, take a breath and ask, how much of my soul does this deserve? Coming up next, we'll explore a powerful shift in thinking, how to let go of the past, not in sadness, but in celebration, as we make space for the person we're becoming. 6. The future self test. Honor who you're becoming. There's a gentle but undeniable truth many of us hesitate to face. We are not the same woman we were 20 years ago, and that's not something to mourn, it's something to honor.
Vivian once stood in her hallway holding a sleek black blazer from her executive days. It was tailored, expensive, and full of memories. But as she looked at it, she realized something quietly profound. I haven't worn this in over a decade, and I don't think I ever will again. That's when she asked herself a new kind of question, not about the past, but the future. Does keeping this help the woman I'm becoming, or does it anchor me to a version of myself that's already complete? This is the essence of the future self-test. It's not about denying who you were. It's about lovingly releasing what no longer fits who you are now and who you still hope to be. That blazer represented decades of strength and achievement, but Vivian's future? It was watercolor classes, long walks with friends, and volunteering at the shelter. That blazer, as powerful as it once was, belonged to a past that didn't need to be carried forward. You can try it with anything. A stack of business books, a sewing machine you haven't touched in years, or high heels that no longer feel safe. When you ask, does this serve the woman I'm becoming? The answer is often gentler than expected. You'll find that releasing it isn't losing something, it's making room for what's next. We don't declutter to throw things away, we do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And the most beautiful part, when you fill your space with only what reflects your current joy, comfort, and dreams, you start to see yourself more clearly, not as someone clinging to memories, but as someone walking with grace into a new chapter. Let's now explore the final, most soulful practice Vivian embraced, how she turned saying goodbye into something healing and whole rather than painful. 7. Ceremonies of closure, a ritual of gratitude. There are moments in life when silence isn't enough, when a quiet goodbye feels too shallow for the weight of what's being left behind. And in those moments, what we need isn't a solution or a strategy. We need a ceremony, a pause, a soft hand on the past before we gently close the door. Vivian discovered this on a rainy Thursday afternoon. She was holding an old wool sweater, the one her late husband used to wear while reading the paper. It had long lost its shape. A few moth holes had crept in, but somehow it still carried the warmth of him, the scent of his cologne, the echo of mornings gone by. And though she knew she couldn't keep everything, she also knew that simply tossing it into a black garbage bag felt wrong. So she did something different. She sat in her favorite chair, pulled the sweater into her lap, and whispered, "Thank you for being part of our life." Then she folded it slowly, like closing the last page of a treasured book, and placed it gently in the donation box. That was the first of what she later called her ceremonies of closure. They weren't elaborate, no candles or speeches, just simple, sacred moments of gratitude before letting go. Because when we've lived a long life, our things aren't just things. They are witnesses to birthdays and heartbreaks, to morning coffee and midnight tears. And letting go without honoring them can feel like erasing part of ourselves. Vivian found that these tiny rituals made all the difference. She created one for her career wardrobe, the suits and heels that once made her feel powerful and seen. She laid out her favorite blazer, the one she wore to her retirement party, and recalled the nervous excitement in the room that day. She smiled. Then she blessed it. "May you help another woman rise." Into the donation box it went, not as a burden, but as a gift passed forward. She held a book ceremony, too. Dozens of titles that shaped her mind through seasons of growth. Before letting go, she wrote small notes and tucked them between the pages. Notes like, "This chapter changed me. This book comforted me after my mother died." The volunteers at the donation center later said people cried finding those notes. Her words kept traveling, even when the books had left her shelves. For her children's drawings, hundreds of them, covered in crayon and glitter, Vivian created a digital album she titled The Masterpieces. She photographed each one, then picked just a handful to keep physically. The rest she blessed and released. She told her children, I kept the memories, not the clutter. And they cried, not because something was lost, but because they had never felt more seen. Even broken things received a farewell. The mixer that had made birthday cakes, the garden tools that once turned soil for tulips. Each one was thanked for its service before being recycled. You helped me build a life, she whispered to her late husband's toolbox. Now it's someone else's turn. You see, what Vivian learned is something we often forget. Letting go is not just about removal. It's about reverence, a chance to say you mattered before making space for what's next. And this isn't just about things. It's about identity. It's about grieving who we were, celebrating who we are, and gently stepping into who we are becoming. That's what real closure looks like. So if you're holding on to something, not because it still serves you, but because you're afraid of what it means to let go, consider this. Maybe what you need isn't more space. Maybe what you need is a ceremony, a quiet thank you, a deep breath, a gentle release. Because we don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And now, as we close this chapter with Vivian, let's open another together. What does your soul still carry that's ready to be honored and finally set free? Let's explore that next. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed right now, that's okay. Take a deep breath. This journey, this act of letting go, isn't something you rush. It's something you grow into with grace, with patience, and with kindness toward yourself. Vivian didn't clear her entire home because she was fearless or strong. She did it because she was ready to feel light again, ready to stop carrying the weight of what no longer served her. She started not with a master plan, but with one drawer, one decision, one honest conversation with herself. And maybe that's where you begin too, not in the attic or the garage, but with a single moment of clarity, a quiet commitment to choose peace over pressure, comfort over clutter. You don't need to know every step. You just need to take the first one. Pick one object today, just one. Hold it. Ask yourself gently, is this helping me live the life I still want to create? If it is, keep it with love. If it's not, thank it for its time and let it go. Because here's the truth no one tells you. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And what your soul needs now, more than ever, is freedom, space, softness, joy. So start where you are, with what you have, and trust that every small decision is a quiet act of becoming lighter, becoming freer, becoming more fully you. If this message touched you, I invite you to share your story in the comments. What's one small step you'll take today? Let's walk this path together.